Happy 2021, everybody. I am Jeremy Hirsch, and we are back with Point of Jew. A little bit of hiatus. I guess I can enjoy, heading into the New Year's as much as anybody else. Glad to be back. It was exciting to once again have an episode and record with a friend of mine, and just be able to talk some sports, talk some football. I know that I kind of had like 900 wrestling episodes to kind of wrap up 2020. This will not buck that trend. But anyway, I am happy that you guys bared with me and are joining in again. And before we kind of get going into the interview and before I kind of tee that up, I wanted to kind of to play with a different segment called What's Brewing, because I like my puns. So you'll put that together. You'll piece that together. You'll laugh. You won't. We'll find out. But, sort of in the interim between when I last invaded your mobile phone, laptop, or however you watch the show, just what's been going on. Been watching a lot of TV, a lot of binge watching. I know pandemics, everything else. What's really going on? Watched like the show Schitt's Creek in like a month, maybe. That was just fantastic. If you have Netflix and you enjoy well-written shows that have hilarious characters and surprisingly touching stories at times, I highly recommend Schitt's Creek. That was created by Dan Levy and his dad, Eugene Levy, which I'm sure you've seen. Eugene Levy is the dad in American Pie, and Dan Levy is, I hadn't really seen him in anything before this. He was on like a Hulu like Christmas movie too that I watched where he was kind of the same character, but super entertaining. It's basically, just to butcher a description of a show, but basically if you took a family kind of like the Kardashians and took away their wealth and put them kind of in this like small podunk-esque town to live until they can get back on their feet and figure things out, just hilarity ensues just naturally. But the characters are super funny. Eugene Levy is always a tremendous comedic actor. And Catherine O'Hara plays his wife, and she's sort of this daytime soap actress. She does phenomenal job with all these little like nuanced accents and things that she speaks in. She always wears sort of, not sometimes over the top, with these very glamorous outfits. And then they have their two kids, played by Annie Murphy and Dan Levy, who are like 30-year-old socialites. They don't really necessarily have a ton of skill sets. And, they start out very, I don't want to say vapid and kind of self-absorbed, but they are. And they kind of grow over the show too. So it's not just watching for like situational like hilarity, but there is plenty of that. But you're actually getting to watch characters grow as well. And then a lot of the folks who make up Schitt's Creek, the town that they're stuck in, have a surprising amount of depth and things going on for them too. So it ends up being extremely enjoyable. And then I'm happy it came back a few days ago. But yeah, definitely just rolled through Cobra Kai. I loved the Karate Kid growing up. That's in my wheelhouse from a generation. And I definitely recommend watching Cobra Kai. There's a nostalgia factor. So if you did watch the Karate Kid movies, you'll probably appreciate it a lot. But my wife didn't grow up on those films, and she's liked it a lot too. There's definitely some absurd things that kind of go on, and there are definitely a few characters that will mention or note that this is a super weird scenario going on. But it's not just about karate. It's about the original stars of the movies and kind of how their lives have progressed and diverged. The main protagonist has a super successful like car dealership and, raising a family. And the antagonist of the movie kind of like became like a loser, and he's trying to rebound with his life. So there's good personal stories with both of them going on. And there's a lot of development around perspectives. Good is not always good. Bad is not always bad. There are gray areas. Certainly there are villains and things in the show, but characters develop differently and sort of change sides and things. And maybe it sounds a little convoluted from the description I'm given, but very, very enjoyable. Loved watching that show. So those are two things to check out. And then doing this episode because we're about to head into the NFL playoffs. My Giants sucked. I mean, that's it. But there's a lot of things to look forward to with the team. A lot of good growth going on, and I think the next few years will be a little bit more fruitful. So I'm sad how the season ended. Anna's a big Packers fan, so she's super stoked. Aaron Rodgers is just a freaking force. And shout out to my buddy Brett, because his Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Did I get that right? With the Brady in there? Yeah. Good job, Brett. That's going on. So yeah, the guest I'm bringing on for the show today, Gibson Vaught. I used to work with Gibson. Gibson played football at a high level in high school and played for Georgetown in college. And he's still involved in football. He still does. I mean, not during the pandemic, but still doing reffing for high school football. So he's still around the game. So part of the reason I wanted to talk to him is obviously strong background in football, played at a very high level. Didn't go pro, and we get into kind of why that maybe didn't happen, and just his perspective on what's going on with football. And I was able to ask him as a fan of the Washington football team, and somebody who's intimately knowledgeable on the NFC East, his thoughts about, there's the big controversy in terms of how the Eagles ended their season. So I was happy to talk about that and all these other things. So without my further ramblings, well, actually, I guess we're segueing into my further ramblings, but with my guest, Gibson Vaught, here is the first episode of 2021, Point of Jew. All right, everybody, welcome to Point of Jew. My guest today, former collegiate football player, Gibson Vaught. Gibson, thank you so much for coming on, buddy.
Yeah, Jeremy, thank you for having me on.
No problem. Pride of Georgetown. I wanted to make sure that I got this, so I wrote everything down so I did not forget. A good journalist, as you know, always prepared, right?
2 career sacks, huge college athlete. Lots to talk about here today.
I mean, even starting in high school at Patrick Henry, you lettered 5 times, 3 as a 3-year starter in basketball, 2 as a 2-way starter in football. You were a captain, right, in both as a senior.
Yep.
You had Virginia Colonial District honors. You led Patrick Henry to the Tomato Bowl championship in 2010. Yep. I love Tomato Bowl. That just sounds fantastic.
Yep, 50th Tomato Bowl. We had a good buddy of mine who I still play golf with. He ran like a 4.240 in high school, but I think he had 2 touchdowns. Both were like over 60 yards to get us back to win the game. So that was a good memory.
That's definitely sounds like something you cherished. And you also led the basketball team that year to the Central Region playoffs.
Yeah, we went deep. We played Petersburg. We actually played against Frank Mason, who's in the NBA now, and he played in Kansas. And back then we were just trying to keep guys from scoring 100 points. But we played hard, and I fouled out of that game. They had a center who was like D1 going to West Virginia to play football. He was like 6'4", 320 pounds. We fouled him like 7 times in the paint. He went 14 for 14 from the stripe that night. I don't think he'd maybe ever done that before in his life. So
good Lord, man.
Big old football player going 100% from the stripe. Pretty funny.
It's just insanely impressive that you were able to be a highly competitive and decorated athlete, a 2-sport athlete. Like, how did you balance that, between football and basketball?
Well, yeah, just, growing up and playing sports was something my family did a lot. All my younger brother played football at Hampton-Sydney and then walked on to University of Georgia. So, we've got a streak, and it probably comes from our dad's side. He was a good athlete, and he just always knew, we had 3 boys growing up, keep them away from girls and keep them in sports, and that's all you need to do.
That's not keeping you away from girls, though. Typically, when you're an athlete, that usually draws them to you. No.
If you're really honing in on your craft, you've got time for nothing else.
All right, that's at least good to know. Might pass that parenting tip down to the little one over there, huh?
Yeah, we just got her a hoop from Amazon. So we've been shooting hoops since Christmas. And we've got her some golf clubs. I've got her swinging, hitting some golf balls out in the yard. So we're starting early.
She might be a 2 or 3 sport athlete herself.
We're going to try.
And then, at Georgetown, you appeared in 6 games as a freshman. They moved you from tight end to linebacker.
Yep. How'd you get it? Is all this on Google?
Dude, I could find anything on Google. I have found stuff about people they didn't even remember that they did.
That's funny.
I mean, I know this is like a fun BS podcast, but I like to know about who I'm talking to, man.
Yeah, you did a lot of homework. I feel bad. I know you've wrestled in the past, but yeah, no, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. You were naming stats. I want to hear them.
No, I mean that was kind of the stats. I mean, I know that you played as linebacker. You also were on special teams.
Yep.
I know, unfortunately, you got derailed your sophomore year due to injury.
Yep. Self-inflicted. Yep.
So when you say self-inflicted?
Yeah, so that was just a part of growing up, freshman year, college. It was St. Patrick's Day. I busted my foot, like a really bad accident. Threw a table, cut it badly, had to have surgery, was non-weight bearing for a very long period of time. And then luckily, Georgetown had one of the best foot and ankle surgeons in the world at that time, Dr. McGuigan. And he was really good, did a bunch of work, and we rehabbed hard, and I was able to come back, and I could have, done anything I wanted to athletically, and I still do this day. It's great.
Well, you got into some stuff after college too. You did rugby for a little bit, no?
Yeah, we played rugby after college. It was a smooth transition, and rugby is, to this day, probably one of the most fun sports I've ever played. We played at a pretty high level. Not, never made any money, but it was a blast. And those guys, they know how to tackle. You learn a lot of things you wish you had known ahead of time when you played football.
Oh, wow. And, it's amazing all the different sports and things you got into. Is there one reason in particular, and I'm not trying to like dive into you or overanalyze you or anything like that, what were the main things keeping you from, going past the college level to the professional level in football?
If we're just speaking candidly, I think that playing professionally, you've got to really appreciate what those guys are, and they're not something that you're around every day. And rarely can you say that you've been in an athletic competition where you've played and stood shoulder to shoulder with someone who has made millions of dollars doing the game, playing the game they love. So, for an everyday Joe like myself and yourself, it's really hard to go there. But, I love watching the NFL, and every Sunday I'm like, those teams are carrying 6 tight ends. They're carrying more tight ends than any other player on the team. I was like, wow, it would have been great to have tried to given that at least the best try you could. And I've got guys that have, and I know people that have. But yeah, it just wasn't something that appealed to me at the time. And not saying that I could now, but yeah, I never fancied myself as a professional athlete. I always wanted to be a professional, and do it that way.
That's awesome to admit. It's not going to that level is not always going to necessarily be for everybody. And there's few. I know we're talking about carrying 6 tight ends on the team, but there's still limited spots, and you have to have a hard, realistic look at yourself and what you can do.
Yeah, and honesty is probably the best thing, because we know guys who had all the talent in the world, and you're like, man, that guy probably could have made it, and they were a hair or two away in luck, as well as, just maybe along the road, they could have done 1 or 2 things differently. And then that would have, and not to say that that's not luck, but perhaps those were just decisions they made that they didn't put becoming a professional athlete as their number 1 choice. And so, sometimes it's that close. There may have been 1,000 other guys just like you, but, you were the one who got the shot. And then that's history. So, and that's, and there you are with even, just a 2-3 year contract, those guys make, $1.5 million, and that can change a lot of people's lives.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. It was really cool. So, yeah, so coming from Virginia, we've had a lot of good athletes, and being around those people and seeing those people have, small glimpses at the NFL. That's awesome. There's one kid we played against in high school, Sam Rogers. He played against my brother as well, but he got 2 or 3 years with the Rams, and he's a local kid, and that's big time. Now he's coaching football, high school football. Sounds like a pretty good life to me.
That's pretty amazing. The only person I knew super well, and I say super well, when I was I went to high school for a little bit in Dayton, Ohio, and I was telling you, I did radio there. When I was a junior, one of the seniors who would help me with certain things and like get acclimated, know what to do, or help me call football games or call other sports. I don't know what team he's on right now, and I know I just saw him play a couple days ago. But I knew kicker Mike Nugent.
Yeah.
That from the Centerville High School radio program. Mike's my boy. Doesn't remember me probably. Wouldn't know my name if he saw it, but yeah, I would call him up many a Saturday morning because we'd have to run the station, and I would harass him to like, all right, I just destroyed something on the mixing board. How do I fix this? What do I do? We can't have dead air. And he was always the dude to pick up.
So Mike was a punter?
Mike was a punter. Yeah, as a punter or kicker.
Well, it's great to, work with guys like that because, they want to be team players. And I think kickers are probably very much so because half of what they do is based on, the hole in the ball. So it's always nice, it's nice to work with athletes. Mike was a good guy. I know you and I got along because you asked me a lot of questions, and I love that. I was like, dude, ask away.
I ask 1,000. That's kind of why I do a podcast, right? I'm free to ask 900,000 questions, pick people's brains, find out about different things, and that's kind of my spiel. Yeah.
What high school sports did you play, Jeremy?
So I never played for a school. When I was in high school, when I was in Dayton, I played I played hockey for just like a rec league.
Oh, roller hockey?
No, ice hockey. I played defense.
And you're playing some puck. Yeah, that's funny. When I went to Georgetown, I had never watched hockey, and all those guys are from Connecticut and New York and New Jersey, and they love ice hockey up there. It's it's a physical sport. I probably would have loved it. That's fun. I
think you would have been good at hockey. I think you probably would have played defense too.
I've been on the ice like twice, and I can't skate to save my life. But I'd much rather play basketball. I think basketball could be improved on if it was on ice, perhaps.
I would say give that a shot. So with that, I mean, you really love basketball. So, just going from high school to college, what sort of pushed you in the direction from football over basketball?
Basketball is so like rugby. Anyone on the field can score. So there's a beauty to that. They play both ways. Because in college, you're either offense or defense, and you're labeled as such. Rarely can you have a player that goes both ways. But football, unlike basketball and rugby, you've really got to devote yourself to being, the best defensive player you can be. But in rugby and also in basketball, you can find an identity still with one side of the ball or the other, and that can give you enough playing time. Like in rugby, I love being a good tackler. And because they always played in space and out on the edge. So, I'm like a safety over there. I got to make that last tackle. And then in basketball, it's the same way. I found my identity is defensive guy and guy who rebounded. And then eventually I've developed like a little mid-range jumper. And now I love handling the basketball. So, I always liked basketball because there were so many things you could do. There's so many ways to improve your game in basketball. Kind of like golf. You can never stop working on one aspect of the game. So that's one thing I really liked about basketball. Football, I was just better, I guess. But I wish I could have played basketball in college, to be honest.
Oh wow! I mean, I've seen you play basketball up close and personal in the 2 minutes that I could stay on the floor against you. But yeah, hell of a basketball player.
Yeah, thanks, Jerry. Yeah, that was a lot of fun that day. It's a great gym. We need to get back in there.
That we need to do that again when I'm not like collapsing and falling after like 3 minutes. My hockey coaches would have hated me.
Yeah, I'm so out of shape. I'm sure hockey and basketball are a lot alike, though. It's that up and back and forth shot, get back on defense. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's embarrassing to be this winded at this age. But, I know you also, you do officiating for youth football, like at the high school level, I believe.
Yeah, high school level. Yep.
And I know this year, obviously, with COVID, it's been hard. So I know it's not of recent memory, but, having stayed in football, at least around it, what kind of perspective or joy does that bring you, seeing sort of the next generation of kids playing? And, are you able to give any of them advice, or they just look at you as ref, or how is that for you?
Yeah, Jeremy, that's a great question. And I get asked that a lot. And refereeing it's a great opportunity to be around the game and not have to put the toll on your body that it used to take. Because that's why those kids are young and they can play football. But secondly, I do enjoy being around the youth. The kids, I will speak to kids on occasion. The more so teams that I see don't necessarily have the resources that other teams will have. And I'll just say, hey guys, you can learn a lot of things from football. These coaches have, devoted their time to teach you that because they've done this before. So you may want to listen to them. And that's only usually if I hear something that has become of value. Being a referee, you're so involved in the game, but you must be very removed. So many times we'll hear the conversations that coaches are having with players very intimately, and they have no idea you're there. They think you're a part of the field. But, I'm sitting there and I'm making very harsh critique of what I hear from a lot of the football coaches that we hear. And I would say there's probably below 50% of what I hear is good. But when I do hear it, it's contagious on that sideline. That's why you can understand why lots of programs can be really successful in football. Football is not that hard. And so usually I'll tell guys like, hey, man, you've got a special thing here. Because I didn't necessarily have much winning in high school. So I always had to grind for my wins in high school. I wasn't part of any winning programs. And it's a blessing to be a part of that. You can learn a lot of things from that.
Oh, wow. What would you say, and people of all ages, backgrounds, everything, kind of tune into this periodically. Not that I have more than like 80 or 90 people that listen to this. But if somebody is listening that's currently, about to be in high school, or somebody that has kids that they want to push into, not push, but, take part in sports, what advice do you have for, sort of the younger set getting ready to maybe get into high school sports, or to parents who are, supporting their kids in those endeavors? What kind of advice would you pass along?
You can look at sport as like a microcosm of life. In that instance, it's good to be able to practice giving something your best effort, even if you don't like it. I could never have done cross country because I hate running. I could never have done, an hour and a half competition or what have you, 15 miles. I mean, I couldn't stand that. I really like lifting, and I really like, excuse me, my wife, she's been watching the video. Chris, would you mind getting me water?
I got it.
Thank you.
Hi, Kristen.
Jeremy says hello.
It sounds great.
Yeah, but so again, football was a microcosm for me. You can learn a lot of things through football, and that's what my football coach said. Rob Scarlotta, he was great at saying, hey man, the reason why you're gonna step 6 inches is because if you do that in life every day, you'll in 4 years you'll be in a better place than you were. But anyway, that's what I appreciate about sports, and you should just go to a place where you can give it your all and you can test things out and be courageous. Thank you.
I think that's great advice, in all honesty.
Yeah.
To switch gears a little bit, obviously since you have a background in it, and obviously just in the time of year we're at, I wanted to pick your brain a little bit, and just, this will air after this weekend's games, but sort of talk about a little bit, different things going on with the NFL, especially as the playoffs are about to kind of start up. And one thing on my mind, especially with proceedings of last week, as an athlete, as a former football player, what do you think of the actions of the Philadelphia Eagles and their coach, Doug Peterson? Now, what I mean by this, just to clarify, obviously I'm a Giants fan. Obviously that had implications on us, but it's still the Giants' responsibility to get themselves in the playoffs. So what I mean by the question, solely as a player, and some of the Eagles have expressed this, would you be, for lack of a better phrase, pissed if your coach basically took you out of a competitive game like that? Or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I've talked about that move with a lot of my buddies, and it seems I can't make reason of it. You look at draft picks, it doesn't make sense. I think maybe two spots they could have improved. I mean, they did. My reasoning of it, if I could, would be they had just won the Super Bowl 3 years ago. How are they now one of the worst teams in the NFL? I mean, I know, like when the Seahawks won that year, the Legion of Boom was no more. All the players have been pimped out. You're making a ton of money. I mean, it's a business.
Yeah.
And I don't make any sense of that. I really can't. And the NFC is a shamble anyway. So, I mean, for even us to be having a conversation about this being relevant, it's funny. But, I mean, I don't know if they would have beaten the Redskins with Jalen. I think it would have been a much, much closer. Yes. But so I can't make sense of it.
Just a lot of the players were, they felt, and I'm obviously condensing a lot of information, but it seems like a lot of them just felt kind of like hurt and betrayed. Yeah, they're not going to necessarily win the game. They're not going to even sniff the playoffs. But, at that point, it was a 3-point differential in a fourth quarter. And like you said, I don't think Jalen necessarily leads them to a win, but it's very hard. And I was listening to the Giants coach, Joe Judge, saying, how do you, regardless of where you are in the standings, to basically just tank, you ask these men to put their bodies on the line for you every single Sunday. You want them to put in the work, you want them to perform, and then you just rip their hearts out, basically.
Yeah. So as a professional football player, you win that game every time you can. You're judged on your merit more so in football. I mean, it's hard to fudge numbers. Sometimes as a salesman, you can fudge numbers, but on a football field, the eye in the sky doesn't lie. And you're working for money in a college setting, in a varsity setting in high school, that job, can be pretty easily won. But when there's that much money involved, I feel like you're messing with people's money at that point. Jalen Hurts is a great player, and I think the Eagles are way better with him than their previous quarterback lineups. And I think they should ride with Jalen as long as they can. I really like what I saw, and I can't make sense of it. I really can't.
Would you, if you were on that team, right, just getting in that headspace, would you lose respect for that coach? Would you essentially? Do you think he lost the locker room a little bit? Going into next season for doing that.
Yeah, I would. I don't really know how other sports work professionally in that setting. Like soccer players. I feel like in soccer, those guys' bodies are worth a little bit more than football players. Those guys are so talented. Soccer, those high money making soccer players. When you're making that much money, and I don't know about playing in a game that's maybe not worth it for you. You could get hurt. I know, for instance, when college seniors don't play in bowl games because they want to go to the NFL and they want to be and they don't want to get hurt.
Yeah.
That would be the only way I can make sense of that. But then again, he didn't make that call. It was made above him. So maybe they're preserving Jalen Hurts. I couldn't tell you. But to hurt the Giants like that, I mean, I love it. I'm a Redskins fan, so I'm cool with it. At the end of the day, I'm cool with it.
What did you since you are a Washington fan, since I'm a New York fan, I have my thoughts, but what did you think about, let's just call it the level of competition this year in the NFC East, or lack thereof? For me, it was just like watching a car wreck. All of them sucked.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at any point in the season, you could have said each of the teams was the best team. The Eagles start off, you're like, wow, they won the Super Bowl 3 years ago. Here come the Eagles. They're just gonna do the small things well, and Doug Peterson's gonna draw it up. But then they look so bad. And then the Redskins are playing Dwayne Haskins, I keep calling them Redskins just because it's been a long time.
It's your whole life, dude. It's
Washington football team, and Dwayne Haskins thinks it's more important to go hang out with and not. He wasn't socially distancing. Dwayne Haskins. And then we win the division with a quarterback with no leg who was told he could die. It's crazy. But the Giants, I think Saquon Barkley will make a 100. I think he'll make a recovery. I think he will.
Well, it'll be nice. I've been pleasantly surprised by Gallman as well, stepping up, I think, big time in Barkley's absence. So both of them next year will complement each other really well. Which
I agree.
We'll see what else can be done really. I'll ask you. I got the right guy in front of me. I don't know what else really needs to be done. I'm still very iffy on Daniel Jones. I want to like him and believe in him, but there's something, and I can't appreciably put my finger on it, that's just not there.
Yeah. I feel like he's rushing a little bit. I've got Daniel Jones and Wayne Gallman on my fantasy team, so I know both players well. And Wayne Gallman, I really like. He's got a great body on him. He's a good. I like him. He can catch. Really dynamic back. Saquon's a freak. If he plays rugby, we might hang with New Zealand if we had athletes like that. But anyway, Saquon will come back. The Giants they're a better run organization than pretty much the rest of the conference because they're so poorly run. Jerry Jones has an ego. The guy who runs the Washington football team he who may not be mentioned. You should try to get on the podcast. Dan Snyder, horrible manager. And then the Eagles, I don't know what they're doing. They won a Super Bowl 3 years ago, and now they can't. It's like they're like the Falcons. Like, it's bad.
Well, you know what? I'm not going to shed a tear over Philly's failures. I'm not trying to hate on anybody who watches this that's in Philadelphia. I just hate every last one of your sports teams, and you have some of the worst fans I've ever seen in my life.
It's sad. Well, let's talk about emerging teams who you're appreciative that are good this year. I remember that are now good. I think the Dolphins are a lot of fun to watch.
Bills.
The Bills. I'm so happy for the Bills, man. I could not be more happy for a franchise.
No, I grew up in the 90s where they were always on the precipice of winning the Super Bowl, and then, nope, not going to happen. It's sad. I obviously am a Giants fan, but I also have a little special place in my heart for the Jets because the Giants and Jets only play each other every 4 years and share a stadium. But in the 90s, I don't cheer for the Bills. I'm not going to say the Bills are one of my favorite teams. They're not. But just as another New York team that's doing well, that's just been crapped on for so many years, it's a nice story. And then also with the Bucs rebound with Tom Brady, everybody always said, and I've never really liked Tom Brady. You know, I admit that he's probably the best quarterback of all time. I think you'd be blind to not see that. But just they always said, oh, he's a system quarterback. Take him away from Belichick. What's he going to do? Well, dude's over 40 years old, you know, with a relatively young club.
He could run the offense. He could coach the offense.
Yeah. I mean, what he's doing is insane. So, you know, while we're talking about these teams, these playoff-ready teams, you know, what do you think in terms of the playoffs? Who do you got your eye on? What do you think is the Super Bowl matchup? What are we going to get to?
So I think the Bucs are really potential. I have a future bet on them with Las Vegas. They were really, really favorable. They were underdogs, really, back when I bet on them. Just because if they do get clicking, I think they have the greatest potential. I think the Kansas City Chiefs are the weaker than they looked when they did win the Super Bowl. Back when they won the Super Bowl that year, I knew they were going to win the Super Bowl. I was like, they're just flat out. I mean, they cannot be stopped. And their defense is volatile. You know, they blitz a lot, and that's fun because, you know, if you get 2 sacks in a drive, you're going to shut somebody out. And if you're going to score every drive, all you got to do is stop them once. So that's really fun to watch. The Bucs, yeah, I think I think they've got a better defense, and I think they could match with them. But I think the Bills are interesting. I don't like predicting who will be in the Super Bowl because I'm just going to watch the playoffs. I'm not going to
go.
Fantasy's over with. I'm just going to enjoy it how it happens. But Kansas City, I think, is still favored.
I think, not purely speculative, and my knowledge of the NFL is greatly under where you're at. You know, I probably watched a handful of games this year, but my wife is a huge Green Bay Packers fan, so I have seen a lot of Green Bay this year, mostly because I've been embarrassed to watch half the Giants games.
Yeah.
But
I watched 2 Redskins games. I told myself that I wouldn't be a Washington football fan until Dan Snyder got me management, and he did. So, but I still only watched 2 games.
Now, I'll definitely watch him more next year, knock on wood, but I
Why is
think
why
what's
is
up?
Anna, why is she Green Bay Packers fan? How come?
So Anna's a Green Bay Packers fan because a couple years ago, and I say a couple, but it's probably been like 10. Her and her friends, I think, were at a sports bar, and they were just like picking teams to like cheer for. And Anna just picked the Packers because she liked the Packers, and she likes Aaron Rodgers a hell of a lot.
Yeah,
So, I mean, he's been a great quarterback. I mean, he's definitely in the discussion for one of the top quarterbacks. And I think they're clicking at the right time right now. I think that they're the team, much disrespect to Washington. The Packers are the team to watch, the team to beat in the NFC. I think there's a lot more discussion in terms of the AFC with, how will Kansas City perform? I had another friend of mine tell me earlier today that, he didn't think Kansas City was going to do a lot. Yeah. I think they only lost once during the regular season, right? But they had a lot of close games where they did not look, like a full, complete, competent football team that they could have lost easily. I think the Bills are going to surprise a lot of people. I really do.
yeah. Aaron Rodgers is always lethal, always dangerous, and that's why my aunt is also a big fan. Her father played football at Clemson, and she's just a Green Bay Packers fan because of Aaron Rodgers. So, and this is a good company with that one. And yeah, I'm a big fan of Aaron. I think they've got a great chance. I also have a future bet on the Green Bay Packers to win because they were underdogs. I placed that bet like week 6, just because it's Aaron Rodgers. And once I saw Kansas City had a chance to be vulnerable this year, unlike they were last year, I was like, somebody's got to fill the void, And yeah, the Bills, I think you're right. The Bills have a really good chance.
I think it's going to be a lot of fun games. I'm definitely going to be watching. I'm probably not going to see every single playoff game, but I'll definitely be keeping my eyes open. Obviously, I'll see all the Green Bay games. And then I think at least early on a game to watch. Obviously, it's dependent on what happens this weekend. But I do think Tampa's going to get past Washington. And Rodgers versus Brady. I mean, that's always going to be a marquee matchup if there ever was one. And I mean, he's at a Foxborough for the past season, so I don't really think, people like, playing in Lambeau, playing in the cold. But I mean, dude played in Massachusetts his whole career. So I don't think that'll affect him as much as some people think it will. I think that'll be an early on sort of game to watch that'll have Super Bowl implications. I know we don't want to talk about necessarily who you think's going, but I think that'll massively lean that way one way or the other.
Yeah, the Tom and Aaron Rodgers, it's a battle every time, and it's been happening for what, 15 years maybe.
I know over a decade for certain. Past that, you lose me a little bit, but yeah, I mean, it's been going on for a long time. Who's the best, between them?
And before the Patriots were winning, the Packers were winning. They won like 2 within the span of 4 years or 3 years, perhaps, if my memory serves me correctly. And my dad was not an NFL fan, so I didn't watch much. My knowledge of football beyond college and University of Georgia isn't much until I got older. But Rodgers he's fun to watch.
He is. It'll be. I think. Well, we'll see what the current crop of quarterbacks does. But I mean, between Brady, Rodgers, Breeze, Rivers, both Mannings. I mean, we were honestly spoiled in the past, between 10 and 20 years of just excellent quarterbacks. And I mentioned Rivers because he usually gets left out of that conversation because the Chargers, were absolute trash for the longest time. But, also warranted in that conversation. It's amazing the quality of quarterbacks that we've had for the past, 10, 20 years.
That's a really good point. I've never thought of it that way, and I think we do underappreciate that because Peyton. I mean, I love watching Peyton. I never thought you could throw on a 3rd and goal from the 2-yard line. A legitimate play would be to throw it to the front pylon, just throw it a foot above the ground and have the wideout dive down and catch it, and it's a perfect play. Peyton made that look good. It's just cool. It's really cool watching those guys. When you watch those guys, what makes them so great is being able to read defenses, and they can read it the minute they turn around from calling a play, And so they'll come down, they'll change it, and because they can put a guy right where someone's not going to be. And Tom is really good at that. I think he struggled this year with Tampa. Yeah, I think he had a lot to worry about, if that makes sense, coming up the line, brand new team. Because once you get good at something, you're able to expand on what you're doing. So maybe we see that Brady come in to play. But, Rodgers can do that. Peyton could do it, come down, make a check. That's really fun to watch. Because I remember when Peyton was in Denver, he probably ran half that offense.
100%.
And Eli too. The Manning brothers are good at that.
I think, and not just because I'm a Giants fan, I think Eli was underappreciated by a lot of NFL fans. I think he was overshadowed by a lot of people, but he was an amazing quarterback. He was very consistent.
That's true, because I'm an Eli Manning hater. I think he's probably one of the least talented quarterbacks other than Joe Flacco.
Oh.
We need a little controversy here.
Little bit of a dagger. I thought he was, because he didn't have the arm, but he always played. He had the toughness. I mean, the Giants took his record away from him.
I'll take it back. He is a professional, because he played how many consecutive games?
Well, I don't have the stats in front of me, but he would have had the Giants record.
I could say like 500 consecutive games would be a good guess.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy, what a professional, because it takes, in college, you can make a difference as well. You got to take care of your body. You really do.
And for the longest time, he was the only guy who could beat Tom Brady in the Super Bowl.
That's true, man. He beat him, dude. He beat him. Those Hail Mary bombs were impressive, and he threw it up in there, and the guy caught it. And I beat Tom. That Tom was so mad. Oh, my God. Could you imagine, being on the sideline this year and then also in those Super Bowl losses to Eli? God, Tom is so competitive. I would love to see him blow up.
The one thing, my only one Tom Brady story of why I didn't like him for so long, just as a person, and I'm sure because Tom Brady gives two shits what I think, but it was during that first Super Bowl. It's Plaxico Burress who was giving the prediction for the game, what the final was going to be, because Plaxico's brilliant, the whole gun in the leg thing. But anyway, he said that I think his prediction was the Giants were going to win 23-17 or something like that. Something close to that anyway. And there's a video, and you can always go on YouTube to find it. And Tom was just 17 points. And then they did end up losing by about that score.
Yeah.
So I always tremendously appreciated that.
Yeah, shoot yourself in the leg is pretty tough on your body. I'm sure that puts about 200 games worth of contact into one leg in one moment. I'm sure that's.
Well, he didn't have too much of a career after that, did Plax, but good memories, and I appreciated getting a Super Bowl out of that. So that was something to remember.
And it's more common than you think. I mean, I can't tell you how many people get hurt that have serious implications on their body. I remember my grandparents would tell a story. They had a family friend of theirs who was trying to go to the NFL, and his agent didn't want him sun tan because he could get sunburn and then wouldn't be able to throw.
Hey, sunburns are serious, man. I was in
Hey, I know.
I just got back from Florida. The whole back of the neck is I fit better in the South because the whole back is red. But on that, man, I appreciate you kind of talking me through, your high school and college career, talking about, what you're doing, in terms of, I know not this year, but, refereeing with the kids, talking a little NFL playoffs. Is there anything, that we didn't broach or, discuss that, was on your mind that you wanted to talk about?
No, Jeremy, I would like to hear more about your professional wrestling career because I love professional wrestling. I always said if I could have chosen one professional athlete to be, it would have either been a golfer or a professional wrestler. So,
you would have been an excellent wrestler.
Yeah, because golfing's, flashy and they make a ton of money, but wrestling, you can become whoever you wanted to be, and it's also super athletic. I mean, it's hard on your body too. I think it'd be a lot of fun.
The ring is not anybody's friend. I mean, I've So I've done a couple podcasts with people who either were in wrestling, or I talked to my Anna's cousin is a referee for wrestling. So we had him on here for
or
professional.
nice.
Like, he would love I'm sure he would love to be a ref in WWE or something. But no, I mean, when I lived in Ohio, just to give the cliff notes, yeah, I'm sure people are sick of me talking about wrestling, but yeah, there was. Do you remember Jimmy Yang at all from like WCW or WWE? All right, Jimmy Yang was in WCW, WWE. He was doing a wrestling clinic in Cincinnati, and because WWE actually used to own a training facility called HWA Heartland Wrestling, and then they kind of got away from that. But that facility was used for training. They still did their own shows, whatever. But Jimmy used that space for training. He had ads out to come to like do a training seminar. Me and like, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 other schmucks ended up going out and doing that. And then at the end of his like boot camp, he asked, a couple of us if we wanted to stay and train. And I did. I really enjoyed it. I traveled with Jimmy to some shows. I wrestled once in Kentucky in like the most like backwards, like nothing going on town in Kentucky. Like I had to drive through like the Black Hills to get there.
That's awesome. What was that workout?
What's up?
What was that workout like? Was it intense?
Yeah, working out for it was intense because he would do workouts with us before we got in the ring, and a lot of different like exercises for both strength and flexibility. Did you ever do tripods? So tripods is when you're balancing yourself basically on your neck, because there's a lot of impact to your neck and spine in wrestling. So you had to strengthen.
Like neck rolls?
We did do neck rolls, but tripods, you're on your legs and you're balancing yourself on your head.
Yes. We used to do those for football and Little League. Yeah.
Yeah. So we did a lot of that, a lot of weights, a lot of cardio. That was tough, man. What's up?
I don't care if you're doing, Greco wrestling or wrestling with your brother or doing professional. It is hard work and it is exhausting.
It's not fun. And then the ring is plywood and the ropes are like cable ropes, cable wire wrapped in duct tape. So like I had bruises just from running the ropes. My arms would be yellow and purple because the ropes are not like springy or cushy or anything like that.
Yeah, wrestling that would have been a fun transition, just to get super bulked up and throw some dudes around the ring. I always wondered what my personality would have been.
It's usually just an extension of yourself, man. I don't
know if I would have gone Harvard or like meathead, I don't know if I would have gone, one or the other, the professor or the, or Dolph Lundgren.
Or a Dolph Lundgren type. You could have been like a Dolph Lundgren type. I could see you like that. Wrestling was a natural transition for a lot of people who did football. Ron Simmons, The Rock, John Bradshaw Layfield. There's like a ton of people that were very, very successful football players that then ended up going into wrestling. I don't watch it as much as I used to, but still.
It's hard to watch without the fans. I've tried to watch it. I used to flip on Monday night. It's so fun to watch the fans getting involved, and God, it's a lot of fun to watch in the intros and it's tough to watch without the fans.
I will say this. I think for sports in general, fans really add, because the atmosphere is insane, especially for wrestling. Even if, anybody out here doesn't like wrestling, the atmosphere, if you ever go to a big show or anything like a Monday Night Raw or one of the pay-per-views or something, that atmosphere, and I've been to football games, baseball games, hockey, nothing is like a wrestling crowd.
Nothing. You're exactly right, Jeremy. You go, and it's like somebody scores a touchdown every 5 minutes. Like, let's go, John Cena comes out. Because we went to the last one we went to was a Friday night in Richmond in the Coliseum, and it was a blast. We had a little box, and we were having a good time. We were dressed in a lot of denim, cut off shorts, and oh man, I was having a blast.
So you're already doing like a little persona just out in the crowd.
I was up there. I was kicking in the air. Oh man, it was fun. We had some room to move around up there in the box, and yeah, it was a blast.
Gibson, when things are whatever state of normal that they happen to be and they're touring again, you and I will go to a show. We'll call up Paul and
Yes, dude, please buy tickets. I don't ever think to buy them and I don't check. You know, I'm not like an avid fan, but I would 100% pay up to $50 to $100 to have really nice seats and go to a wrestling match. I promise you.
we'll do that. I promise I will pay some attention when they start touring again.
I'll get you the money, I promise.
He's good for it, ladies and gentlemen. He is good for it. But, thank you again for talking with me, for sharing. And, hopefully, like I said, we'll be at a wrestling show again soon. Everybody, Gibson Vaught.
Hey, thank you, Jeremy. This was really intimate. This was great. I appreciate it. And we may even have to do a version 2, maybe a couple thousand episodes in between the first one and the last one.
Well, we'll do a rehash. We'll see if any of our predictions came true or something. Gibson, thank you, bud. Appreciate it.
Hey, Jeremy, take it easy.
Thanks everybody for watching. I had a tremendous time talking to Gibson. Hopefully you had a lot of fun watching us. I'm not apologizing once again about bringing wrestling up. If every single one of my guests wants to talk wrestling with me, that's cool. I'm sorry I didn't share, I was not embarrassed, but I know I've gone on and on and on about a lot of different wrestling stories with me and training and just all these different things, trying to explain the best I can. So hopefully, I don't think I told any too much random stories, but hopefully you guys enjoyed that. And hopefully you enjoyed Gibson's stories. It's really cool seeing, another athlete, like I'm an athlete, but an actual athlete's background and perspective. And it's really cool getting that, to me anyway, that firsthand knowledge of somebody that understands the sport that we're talking about because of his experiences, that knows what it's like to be in a locker room and understands the mindset of those players. Somebody that can give direct advice, whether you're heading into high school sports or collegiate sports. I'm assuming if you're in collegiate, you were in high school sports. That makes sense. But just some advice about that. And obviously having to move on from that too and doing other things. I worked for a staffing company with Gibson, and he's a successful salesperson. He's good at business, and I'm sure he will do a lot of other tremendous things. It's weird because I was going to say significantly, he's a younger guy than me, which super weird to wrap your head around, right? Happy 2021. I keep getting older, pushing towards 35, which blows my mind, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, again, just really loved, speaking to Gibson, getting to understand his background and the insights he was able to provide, just regarding our conversation around football. And that's something that I was happy that we're able to do. I'm always excited to talk about sports. It's my favorite thing to talk about. I'm sure some of you guys I know watched or listened to the baseball podcast, Matt, Ruben, and I did before this. And that's sort of my roots in terms of what I'm interested in talking about sports. So always happy to talk about sports. We'll still have, guests involving music and writing and comics and pop culture. And I'm always looking to learn more about all the different projects that you guys are doing, because, it's cool to get to learn about all these different things. And then hopefully it's enjoyable for everybody listening or watching, to see all these different people and learn about these different topics. If it's something that, you're super into or you're hearing about for the first time, and getting that perspective from somebody who is from that field or that spectrum. So a lot of great stuff coming up. I'm trying to actually, right before I was recording this, was trying to book another author. Have really cool people coming up I'm excited about that are going to do the show. A friend of mine, Devin, who just does tremendous cosplay work, and I'm hopefully I think he's going to do the show next week from his studio, which essentially is his garage, because we use the spaces we have, and it's a cool setup. So hopefully we'll get some nice background there. Have somebody I know that is in a band, so we'll be talking about music, trying to book a friend of mine who's an author, and tremendous beautiful use of watercolors, and makes children's books. So my level of reading comprehension skills, so that would be good. But just anybody else we can grab and get, still trying to get anybody I can. just because I like the experience. The one thing that, I was able to do in 2020 was, set up this podcast, because getting together with people was hard, and provides an outlet for me to just talk and ramble. And that's my favorite thing to do, if you could not tell by now. So thank you for joining me on this journey. Keep watching these. Hopefully you're taking a look at these links on facebook.com/pointofjew, or, you're getting the different links and things from linktr.ee/THEJHirsch, because that's my link tree where everything goes. And you can, always talk to me. I'm definitely on Twitter constantly, mostly just rambling about Yankee stuff, but I am at THEJHirsch42 on Twitter. So lots of opportunities. If you have questions, comments, editorial, smoke signals, carrier pigeons, whatever mode of transportation, communication, that's the ticket to get to. So thank you again for catching me in this first episode of 2021. Hopefully much more enjoyable things still to come. And I will catch you guys next week.